Heyo everybody, Haku here with my predictions for what I think will be Endgame of One Piece, the final Straw Hat main crew. Or at least I should say, I guess the 2021 predictions I have, because yeah, this is not necessarily what I want the final crew to end up being, but what I predict, given the story so far, what the final crew will end up being. And if you were to ask me like a year ago, before I got more into like diving deeply into the series and predicting this kind of thing, like my answers would have been way different. So I guess like I could update this next year and again have a more focused answer on some of these characters. So I'll reveal each of my predictions as we go through them, but one of the big first things you'll notice is that there are 16, and it's like, oh wow, that's a whole hell of a lot. But I think we have a pattern set up that might lead us to 16. Two of the biggest things I want to bring up in support of that are, well, first, that we get a specific number for the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, so it's like, why on earth would Oda give us a specific number? Why couldn't he just say, yeah, it's around this many? We specifically get 5,640 though, just 16 shy of the overall Straw Hat crew being 5,656, or Gomu Gomu, Luffy's friends, Luffy's crew being his Gomu Gomu. Now, of course, another option is that Ideyu could show up with 6 random crewmates and we could be like, okay, there's our 56, and it's just a Grand Fleet, but I think that's much less exciting. Also, with Jinbei joining, I think, given the Straw Hats that have already joined, we can use that pattern to identify who the remainder may be. And another big key thing for me is that people have been talking a lot over the past year or so about this 4x3 theory, 4 in the East Blue, 4 in Paradise, 4 in the New World, but I think isn't it a lot more sort of rounded out and even if it's 4x4, 4 in the Paradise, New World, East Blue, and in the Endgame. And these aren't just like random new characters being thrown in, but they're characters that people are already like, oh yeah, I could see them showing back up and being a Straw Hat. So again, I think when we look at these people, who a lot of people already view as potential Straw Hat candidates, there really is a pattern going on with them, and I think Jinbei is really key into that pattern. So I guess to go ahead and get into that pattern really quickly, with the first 4 joining, it's easy. They joined quickly in successive arcs, like basically 1 arc each, and then Nami like really truly joining after a second arc with Arlong. But basically they were just introduced quickly to fill out our main cast before we move into the actual bulk of the story. Then once we get to the Grand Line with Paradise, the 4 that join in Paradise, I don't think there was somebody who did like a Straw Hat prediction video where they talked about, it might have been like Morge made a video where they talked about how strange and out there and weird the choices were at the time. But for me, they're not like super strange choices, but I think the thing that binds the 4 of them together is the original 4 were pretty straightforward choices, but these 4, they aren't that weird to me, but they're not really straightforward choices either. I mean, at the time, no like little animal mascot character like Chopper had joined. Chopper wasn't even the first doctor we saw on Drum Island. We didn't know if that was even going to be a permanent role, though it was likely it was going to be. With Robin, we had so much focus on Vivi, and then Robin joined out of nowhere and didn't get her development until arcs later as a fully fledged Straw Hat. With Frankie, again, he wasn't even the first not helmsman, geez, the first shipwright that we met in Water 7. There were a lot of other options that people thought were more likely. We didn't get his sad backstory at first. We didn't even know that he was going to be anything more than like a little side villain at first. And with Brook, one of the big things with Straw Hats joining is a sad backstory. We didn't even get Brook's sad backstory until literally right before he joined, after the big bad of the arc had already been defeated. So again, I think East Blue, straightforward choices to hurry up and fill out our main cast. The Paradise choices were a little bit different than normal, and then the pattern that I think Jinbei establishes, and we can see with a lot of other potential Straw Hats, is that these are characters that are introduced to us in one arc, Then in another arc, they play a key role that makes you think, oh wow, yeah, after this arc they could totally be a Straw Hat. Then they get sidelined for a little bit and finally come back to join in a third arc. So again, Jinbei, introduced in Fishman, or not Fishman Island, introduced during the whole Ace Rescue stuff with Impel Down into Marineford, then plays a key role that makes you think, oh yeah, he could totally be a Straw Hat during Fishman Island, gets benched for a little bit, and finally joins in Whole Cake. And that moves me into my first actual prediction for new characters joining the Straw Hats. My first actual prediction is, again, I feel like kind of an easy slam dunk one that people have been talking about for a while, and it's Carrot. It's a really easy choice to make. I think Carrot, again, follows the same pattern as Jinbei of being introduced in Zou, then playing a role in Whole Cake that makes you think, you know what, I could see it. If Luffy just says, okay, be a Straw Hat now at the end of Whole Cake, it makes sense. But then it doesn't really get, like, kind of gets sidelined, I think, in the Onigashima raid, but in Wano, I think people overblow how much Carrot was sidelined, because it's like, Carrot really got as much attention as, like, Nami or Frank, probably more than, like, Frankie or Usopp, or Brook even. Like, most of the Straw Hats got absolutely nothing in the bulk of Wano, except for, like, Zoro and Luffy, and a little bit of Sanji there towards the end. So yeah, I think that Carrot follows that pattern. Carrot could be joining at the end of Wano, maybe. Again, it depends. We'll have to see within the next year. Does Carrot do something big in the last moments of this raid? Does Carrot join later on in a moon-focused arc, since we'll probably get some sort of moon-focused arc? I don't know. But I do feel like right now, given, again, I'm not going to go deep into all the reasons why every character should be a Straw Hat. Carrot, out of all of the potential Straw Hat candidates, fits most perfectly of sort of the general template. So yeah, I feel like Carrot is the most likely to join next. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, what about Yamato? But I think that Yamato actually fits another pattern extremely well. So I will talk about where Yamato fits in a little bit later on. Next, I would bring up Bellamy, and I kind of feel like Bellamy's a character where a lot of people are just going to be like, what, you think Bellamy would be a Straw Hat? But I really don't think that Bellamy is that odd of a choice. I think Bellamy, again, fits the Straw Hat mold really well. I think he's had a really good and really underrated story and character arc, filled with a lot of development over the course of the series. And there was this one, like, entirely, almost way too long theory that I read about Bellamy joining that makes absolute sense, that I guess I'll link in the description and the comments so that you can go read that if you want to, because again, that's not really what I'm getting into, like why each of them should. It's more of how they fit the pattern and why I think they're the most likely because of that. So fitting the pattern, Bellamy was introduced back in Jaya. Bellamy played a really nice role in Dressrosa, and his interactions with Luffy there are really great. And I think his character journey, even getting a bit of a backstory on him, not too in-depth, is really important. The stuff about him not having a dream and thinking the era of dreams is over and everything, and the way he idolized Doflamingo and how he came to not idolize but respect Luffy, and how that relationship there is different. I think we got that stuff in Dressrosa that makes me think at the end, you know what, if he were to join, I really wouldn't think he would be that much of a misfit among the Straw Hats. And then I think we could definitely get him showing back up to join the third arc, because he was one of the only people that said, actually he was the only one from that Dressrosa group that left that was like, I'm not joining the Grand Fleet. He went off to gain a skill that could help the Straw Hats in the future. He took Luffy's Viver card, so we know if Luffy's in trouble or something, he's probably going to end up showing up. And another big thing is, I'm convinced that before we get to Raftel, we're having a Hachinosu, or Beehive Island, or Full of Lead, depending on the translation and everything. We're going to have an arc there, because it was an island that was mentioned all the way back in Long Ring Longland. It was the home base of the Rocks Pirates. It's now the home base of the Blackbeard Pirates. It's so important that I think we have got to go there. And I think it would be a perfect setup for him to join there, because right after he was introduced in Jaya, he had his whole TED Talk, his spiel about how the era of dreams is dead. Then immediately after Luffy leaves the bar is when we have the Blackbeard speech, Blackbeard being introduced in the same arc, about how people's dreams never die. So, again, with them being introduced one after another, I think the Hachinosu arc could be where we get Bellamy back in the story. Again, with Bellamy developing from being this guy that thought the era of dreams was dead to Luffy changing that, and of course Blackbeard being important to that concept as well. So yeah, I think we are set up for Bellamy to also fit into that same pattern. Now this is where things get a bit weird. For the fourth slot in both the New World and in the Endgame, I feel like there are a couple of solid options where I'm like not particularly sold on any single one of them, but I'm like, they all kind of fit the pattern, and I could kind of see any of them. Fans have a lot of reasons why they think they will or won't join. So given that, I'm going to sort of bring up all of the possibilities that could fill that fourth slot. But I'm pretty sold on Carrot and Bellamy. Like, that might not even be the order they join. We might get a Hachinosu arc and Bellamy joins, and then Carrot doesn't end up joining until later in some Moon arc or something. Like, I have no idea, because Jinbei was sidelined all throughout Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, which was a while. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see there. But yeah, let's get into my fourth guess. So I don't know who fits this pattern well enough to be the fourth guess, really. Who will be the fourth person to join in the New World, or heck, they might even end up joining before Bellamy or something. They might be the third to join. But a couple options that I kind of like for this. The two that I was going to bring up were Smoker and Caesar. I know they're both kind of popular guesses in the fandom lately, but later on, I also thought, you know what, let's throw Bon Clay in there too. He kind of does fit in a way, but it might just be somebody totally different. Maybe one of you will come in the comments and say, you know what, this person fits that pattern. I think it might be them. Or even, I think Yamato could possibly fit here. So for me, Smoker, he was introduced in the story in Logetown. He played sort of roles throughout the series in Alabasta, in Marineford, then again in Punk Hazard, and slowly he's been sort of seeing the bad in the world government and the good in the Straw Hats. So at first, like, I would say, again, even a few months ago, if you were to say, Smoker would join, I'd be like, you're insane. He's got too many other things going on. He's definitely going to stick as a Marine. But I don't know. I feel like with so many people having kind of good arguments for Smoker, I've been swayed a little bit to be like, you know what? It could be him. Maybe he looks a little too similar to Bellamy for me, but then again, I do think he looks different enough. His Logia power would be totally different. Another really important thing with Smoker joining the Straw Hats that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about is that Smoker basically started in Logetown, entered the Grand Line around the same time as the Straw Hats, and has been essentially on the same journey as them. Not with them, but he's also made that journey around the world. So him joining, in a sense, like, it would be like he had been around the world too. As for Caesar, I can't tell if I love or if I hate the idea of him becoming a Straw Hat. Like, I think his design, his personality would just fit so well with the insanity of the main crew. He would be, like, just different enough to fit in perfectly. Again, he would be a Logia user. His abilities are different enough from everybody else. The only thing is, we don't have a sad backstory on him yet. He was introduced following the pattern. He was introduced in Punk Hazard. I mean, I guess he played a role in Whole Cake, but not really that important of a role. But I guess slowly over time, he helped Chopper with the medicine and Zoe. Like, I don't know if you can redeem Caesar or not. I'm just really not sure. I mean, Oda's a great writer, so maybe. But yeah, I'm less sold on Caesar than I am on Smoker. And if you were to ask which I prefer, I guess I would prefer Smoker, but it's just almost the insanity of Caesar joining the Straw Hats almost makes me think, man, that's a big ball play on Oda's part, so maybe. As for Bon Clay, again, introduced in Alabasta, played a huge role that makes him very, very endeared to the fandom and to Luffy in Impel Down, and could show back up to join, but again, to me, Bon Clay isn't different enough in a satisfying way for me to be like, oh, I could totally see them as Strat, but maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe Bon Clay will be that fourth member in the New World. And it would kind of make sense. It's just, to me, I kind of feel like Bon Clay, again, kind of has his own thing going on in Impel Down right now. But yeah, like I said too, it could end up being somebody completely different. Or I think Yamato could arguably fit. Yamato is being introduced now, being given a sad backstory and everything, and I think that there's every chance that Yamato could go off aside from the Straw Hats, maybe take down Weevil or something, and then, you know what, I'll talk more about Yamato later and then come back and join the third arc, but I just think that Yamato could maybe arguably fit this, and we could end up with, like, Jinbei, Carrot, Yamato joining, like, Carrot and Yamato joining at the end of this arc, and Yamato not really fitting the pattern, and then Bellamy joining later. I don't know. But either way, I want to go ahead and get into the things that the next four have in common. There are, depending on how you want to separate these points out, 3 to 5 really strong things that I think connect the characters that could potentially come in the end game. People are going to be like, oh gosh, why are you, like, dumping 4 characters, even if they're all, like, especially if they're all, like, female characters, just dumping them into the crew last minute. But really, they're people that make a lot of sense and that fans already think could make sense in the Straw Hats. So the 3 to 5 big points that connect these characters, that kind of establish a pattern among them, is that they all have a sad backstory already. They all have a really strong, or at least a connection to Luffy specifically, but maybe not really so much the rest of the crew. They all stand to offer more in the end game, maybe right before Raftel or even after Raftel, as we have to maybe take down the world government or something. They all stand to offer more to the Straw Hats in the end game than they do on the journey. And then not really lastly, another thing they all have in common is that they don't have a dream that's specifically connected to the journey to Raftel. So it's not like they need to be there when the Straw Hats make it to Raftel, or Laugh-Tale. Don't know why I'm still calling it Raftel. And the last thing they all have in common, really obvious one, they all have Princess in their epithet or nickname. And if I work off of that pattern, I think the most obvious one to join, maybe not the first to join, this is kind of in order of likelihood to me, not in order of actually joining, but the most likely to me, people have been saying forever that Vivi's already a honorary Straw Hat. Vivi's going to come back and join up with them eventually. It's going to happen after the Reverie stuff maybe. So Vivi is already somebody that it seems like everyone, including apparently Oda, including her in a lot of Straw Hat stuff, apparently Vivi's already basically a Straw Hat, but Vivi coming back in the endgame fits this pattern because, again, she's Princess Vivi, she has the princess there, she has a strong connection to Luffy, maybe not the entirety of the crew, but at least the earlier members of the crew. We already have her backstory, we already know that, you know, she doesn't really have a dream that requires her to be there when they find the One Piece or anything, and she offers more in the endgame than she does on the journey. On the journey, we don't really know how strong or useful she is. She doesn't seem to have any specific skills, like, as part of a pirate crew, and when it comes to her strength, we don't know how strong she is. Maybe she spent the past 2 years training with Pell and has, like, nuke tanking defense at this point or something, but we don't know what Vivi's doing. Sorry, my hair. We don't know what Vivi's doing right now, strength-wise, but what she does offer in the endgame is this sort of lore importance, being one of the Nefertari, one of the 20 families, or 20 sort of founders that didn't end up becoming celestial dragons. She adds that sort of legitimacy too, as the Princess of Alabasta and as the descendant of one of the 20. She adds this legitimacy to the Straw Hats waging war on the world government, if that is where the end game is heading. After Vivi, I kind of think another pretty clear option is Shirahoshi. I think even that Shirahoshi might end up, like, needing to join the Strats eventually. So again, Shirahoshi, we've got her sad backstory along with all of the other sort of Fishman Island backstory stuff. We have got her strong connection to Luffy, even if not the entirety of the crew. We know that she doesn't really need to be there. Her dream of, like, sort of seeing the surface world with Luffy and stuff doesn't really have to be there to find the One Piece or anything. She adds a lot more to the crew in the end game than she does right now on the journey, because in the end game she would give them the ability, since she can eventually we would assume be able to control the Sea Kings, allow them to cross the Calm Belt, which is going to be important for getting around the world, maybe even allow them to stop the Calm Belt from being what it is, or I don't know, people have tons of theories on, like, getting rid of the sort of Calm Belt and Red Line system. So however that works, she might be important in that way. And a reason that she might have to join is that when everybody finds out that she's one of the ancient weapons, everyone's going to be after her. The Pirate King's crew might be necessary to protect her. I think she's going to be an extremely important character in the end game of the series, so she might need to be there with the crew in the end. Plus, of course, we have that big Fishman Island shot where she's with the rest of the crew that, again, maybe like Vivi being with the rest of the crew in Alabasta, is a hint to her potentially coming in to be one of the endgame choices. Lastly, of course, she is called by most people not by her name, but by Ningyo Hime, or Mermaid Princess. So again, princess in her epithet. Now we can finally talk about Yamato. Getting to finally talk about Yamato. So Yamato's character joining right away after Wano, to me, kind of has its problems. Yamato was just thrown into the story like, hey, here's this new character out of nowhere. Hey, they're really powerful. Hey, they're already your friend. And I think that taking a little bit more time with the character would not only make sense for Yamato's story, but also help Yamato just be a much better character. So I don't think that Yamato is going to immediately join after Wano. No character has immediately joined after being introduced in a while. And I think there's a lot of logical reasons for it, but first I'll get into how Yamato fits the pattern. So of course Yamato is called Onihime, or Ogre Princess, so fitting that nickname pattern. But not only that, Yamato has a connection to Luffy, but not really the rest of the crew whatsoever. And I hesitate to say a strong connection to Luffy, but at least a connection to Luffy. So there's that. We've gotten Yamato's backstory. Yamato doesn't have a dream that particularly requires Yamato to be there when they find the One Piece. But maybe these four join right before Raftel instead of right after. Or in the full scope of the endgame. We don't know how long the endgame is going to be. But another thing with Yamato is that Yamato offers one big important thing. It's like, what does Yamato do if Yamato joins the crew right now? We don't really know. The only thing that Yamato truly has going is being an endgame level fighter. So again, that is something clear and specific that Yamato offers as a member of the Straw Hats in the endgame. But like, as for right now, it's like, does Yamato really add much personality-wise or skill-wise? Not particularly. But again, in the endgame, like Yamato's strength, the fighting comes into play. Also, the ways that I think that it could improve Yamato's character are insane. So I was thinking for a while that it would make sense if Yamato just took over the remnants of the Beast Pirates, because, a bunch of the gifters have been turned, a bunch of the non-gifters were sort of turned from Kaido's crew by the whole Queen situation. But now that I think more about it, we have to handle, like Chekhov's gun, we have to handle Weevil somehow. Like, something has to happen with him, or else why introduce him whatsoever? So I feel like we could get the Whitebeard Pirates getting back together a little bit, going after Weevil, and Yamato being a part of that. Another reason why I think this is important is because Yamato wants to be Odin. That's a huge thing. That's been the character's kind of center, their crux, their only development for a very, very long time is just that they wanted to be Odin. Odin sailed with the Whitebeard Pirates and then joined the Pirate King's crew. I've seen a lot of people like, oh, Yamato's never joining the Straw Hats because Yamato will join the Whitebeard Pirates. But I don't think that's true either. I think Yamato will go with the Whitebeard Pirates, will be part of taking down Weevil. Again, that lets the character develop so much more, and then can come back to the Straw Hats to join them later on. So, another thing here that I'm just now noticing fits with Vivi and Shirahoshi, Vivi being important in the Alabasta sort of fight against the enemies, and then Shirahoshi in the fight against the enemies, at least being present and everything on Fishman Island, is sort of in line with Yamato being there for the taking down of Kaido now. So again, I think that Yamato fits this pattern much more perfectly. Yamato has so much more to offer in the endgame, and Yamato going away for a while with the Whitebeard Pirates not only fits with the Odin stuff perfectly of going with the Whitebeard Pirates then joining the Pirate King's crew, but it also helps develop Yamato's character a lot further. So yeah, for this last one, it's going to be difficult. So there are 4 characters that I'm like, you know what, they kind of fit. Like, basically, there's one that we don't know enough about that I'm like, I cannot rule out that possibility, but we just don't know anything about the character. One that I think fits the pattern really, really well and does offer stuff to the crew in the endgame, but I just don't really see them joining. One that I think doesn't fit the pattern very well, but makes a lot of sense for joining and offers a lot in the endgame. And one that is my personal favorite of the 4 for joining, just because I think that they fit the pattern most perfectly, and they sort of have a lot of likelihood of joining, but the thing going against them is, maybe you all can think of something, but I can't particularly think of what they offer in the endgame. I'm not sure. So to start with that most confusing of choices, it would be Jewelry Bonnie, who we just don't know enough about. Jewelry Bonnie doesn't have a princess epithet or a sad backstory or anything like that yet, but I just feel like Jewelry Bonnie I can't rule out yet either because we don't know enough, and every single one of the worst generation has gotten a lot of attention except for her and Aruj so far, and I feel like they are going to eventually. So I just think that we're going to learn more eventually. I cannot rule out the possibility of Bonnie joining. Even though, again, you know, we just don't know enough. I just wanted to put her in here to say that, you know, I can't really rule out that she might be in that last slot. Now, Boa Hancock to me, I think doesn't make a ton of sense joining. That's just a personal thing. I think design-wise, I think personality-wise, Boa doesn't really add too much to the crew. But fitting the pattern, we've already got the sad backstory. She's heavy Hime, we have Snake Princess. She's got a really strong connection to Luffy, even if not the rest of the crew. She doesn't have to be there for us to find the One Piece. And also, she does provide a lot in the endgame, being another endgame level fighter. So she fits the pattern really, really, really well. I just don't personally see Hancock joining that much, but I could entirely be wrong because, again, she fits the pattern so perfectly. Now, this is one that I brought up to my friend, and that's Perona. So Perona doesn't fit the pattern very well. Perona's not got a sad backstory yet, or a particularly close connection to Luffy so far, but Perona does offer a lot to the crew, I think, in terms of abilities with her devil fruit, in terms of personality and appearance being different from other characters. I think Perona stands to offer a lot, even though Perona doesn't fit very well. And when I ran over this theory with my friend, they said that they thought Perona was the most likely out of those 4. So, I don't know. I just wanted to add Perona in because Perona fits some things but not others, so maybe like I'm just being too specific with this theory. But Perona, we know she's going to the New World now to try to find Moria and stuff too. So yeah, I just can't. It's another one that like I'm not really sold on, but I also can't rule out, and I definitely wouldn't mind joining personally. Another thing I forgot to mention, Princess in the nickname her epithet is Ghost Princess. This in katakana, rather than being a translation like Hebihime or Onihime or Ningyo-hime, but no, she's literally like Ghostu Princessu. So, yeah, straight up Princess in the nickname as well. And then finally, the one that I find most likely, but don't see what they offer, is Rebecca. Rebecca, again, talking about how those first three fit because they were there for the main villain of their arc being taken down. She was there, an important role in sort of distracting Dofi long enough for Luffy to get back up and get his haki back. So she was really, really important there. She has one of the saddest and most in-depth backstories in the series, I feel like. She has a really strong connection to Luffy, if not the rest of the crew. She doesn't have a dream that requires her to be there finding the One Piece, and her epithet during Dressrosa was like, oh god, I don't remember it. It was, I know it was Phantom Princess, it was like Mabarashi or Mabarashita no Ojo or something like that. But yeah, she was Phantom Princess, another one with Princess in her epithet. So, again, all of that fits, like, with her and with the previous three, and she already has a connection to Vivi and to Shirahoshi. All of it fits so, so perfectly, except I can't figure out what she offers to the crew in the endgame. She doesn't have the sort of lore significance that Vivi does. She doesn't have the abilities of like an ancient weapon like Shirahoshi does, and she doesn't have the end game level fighter status that Yamato does. So I'm not sure where she fits in exactly. Maybe it's just storyline stuff and she fits in being like this happy, youthful, young person. I have no idea, honestly. I mean, I think a lot of people really, really underestimate how strong Rebecca is. Another situation like Carrot or Bellamy where it's like, Carrot took out Diesel and, like, I hate power scaling and stuff, but she took down, like, Diesel and Randolph, who we saw taking down entire countries, and she basically no-diffed them, was kind of the one that took over the entirety of the mirror world, and did all of that, like, without even needing Sulong or very much of her powers or anything. And then Bellamy is like, Bellamy's got haki, he's got a 200 plus bounty, I think, maybe 100 plus. But yeah, he's a strong guy. Like, not Luffy strong, but compared to other characters, like, he's not a pushover or anything. And I think the same is true of Rebecca. Like, Rebecca wasn't on, like, Jesus Burgess or, like, Sabo level, but she was still really, really strong, just compared to, like, the rank and file gladiators. So, again, maybe she does have something to offer that I'm not seeing. Maybe it's going to end up being that Yamato takes that fourth slot in the New World, and that the end game is going to be sort of Shirahoshi, Vivi, Hancock, and Rebecca. I have no idea. But again, as of 2021, I think there are going to be 16 main crew Straw Hats to fill out the 56-56 Grand Fleet. Luffy's crew is Gomu Gomu, and these are my best guesses for who those 16 will be. Again, give me another year and my predictions will probably change. Last year, if you were to ask, I would not have been this deep into thinking about the story and the patterns, and I would have probably been like, maybe Carrot will, because Yamato had just been introduced. I would have been like, maybe Carrot will join. We'll see. If Carrot doesn't join, maybe nobody. If she does, maybe she'll be the last one. But yeah, now a year has totally changed my opinion and made me kind of believe in this pattern. And a year from now, I might think, okay, the pattern has changed. A year from now, I might think, okay, we have some better specific ideas on who fits this. Or we could have had Carrot and Yamato both join, and I could be like, okay, back to the drawing board, or something. Or maybe Yamato just fits. I don't know. Again, tell me your thoughts, but these are my best guesses so far as of 2021. Thank you so much for watching. Like if you did like the video. Comment down there to tell me what you thought, this theory, your thoughts on who you think will be the final strats and everything. Follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server asking, I'll give you one. Subscribe for more One Piece, much more on the channel if you want. And if you'd like to help support the channel on Patreon, it is patreon.com/Haku of the Tubes, or a link will be in the description. But either way, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this one. I put a ton of work into it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.